You're listening to Music Tectonics.
How to
start up.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dmitri. I'm also the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, the PR and marketing firm that specializes in music tech and music innovation. And if you've been following my How to Startup series, you know we've been talking to investors and advisors on the ins and outs of running a startup. Today, I thought I'd bring you more advice through the lens of startup founders. In this episode, we will tackle how to start up a new musical instrument company. And by new, I mean a new musical invention as well as a company. Troy Sheets, a Silicon Valley electrical engineer, turned his after-work hobby into a full-time business with the help of his wife, Kate Sheets. Together, they co-founded Playtime Engineering, a company dedicated to merging the world of music and play. Their flagship products, BlipBlox and BlipBlox After Dark, are innovative synthesizers blending the functionality of professional music instrument with kids' toys, aesthetics, and safety certifications. Their latest creation, MyTrax, brings the same kids' toy aesthetic and safety to an MPC-style groove station. Playtime Engineering is on a mission to bring genuine music production experiences to kids, adults, and families around the globe. And they've done so by leveraging two majorly successful crowdfunding campaigns and building a community in support of their vision. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Dmitri. Thanks so much for having us. I'm Troy.
And I'm Kate. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, can you play us a few notes from the BlipBlox and tell us what you're up to and what the instrument looks like so our listeners get a sense of what we're talking about?
Sure. So the BlipBlox is, if you want, what does it look like? It basically looks like if Fisher-Price designed a synthesizer. That's sort of what we hear a lot. That's not by accident. It is physically, it's a plastic music toy, but inside it has very powerful electronics. So it really is a real synthesizer inside. So it's sort of a deceptively simple looking device, but it really is a real synthesizer. It has MIDI, has audio out. So even though it looks like a toy, it can really function as a real synthesizer.
Love it.
So let me get some sound going here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to play a little bit here. Wow.
So one of the things to point out what Troy was doing is that when you heard the sound really change, suddenly he was pressing what's called the randomize button. And that's one of the really cool things for kids is that the randomize button will sort of reset all the parameters and start with something fresh. So there's always something for them to interact with that's going to be new. And that's really great for kids when it comes to exploring music.
Right out of the gate, the sounds that I heard, imagining like a kid touching a music, like a little kid touching a musical instrument for the first time, and they're like playing the wrong key. They're not sure what to do next. They're just kind of dabbling or whatever. I feel like if I was like a 4-year-old that was playing this right now, I'd be like, I'm a rock star. I am like a dance music DJ. I am on stage right now. The sound immediately brought me there.
We actually have a funny anecdote from yesterday. We were bringing the BlipBlox out into a park to take some photos, and there were some little kids there, and they just immediately ran up to us and asked to play. And not knowing these kids and not knowing anything about them, they weren't planning on doing that day. They were just playing in the park, and they immediately took to it and started playing around, and we didn't need to tell them anything. They just did it on their own.
And one of the things that makes it easy for kids to pick up is that the BlipBlox is one of the only instruments that plays the melodies for you. So almost every other instrument, the kids start by playing notes. And with the BlipBlox, we decided the BlipBlox would play the notes. It has hundreds of built-in sequences. So what the kids can focus on is basically sculpting the sound, changing the parameters of the sound, and exploring the textures of the sound.
Nice. Yeah, that's super fun. That can be the fun part of making music, right? Especially the easy part, and you get them in there fast. Just real quickly, when you're looking at it, it's got a lot of bright colors. It's got what looks like a gear shifter on it. Like you said, it's got the randomize button. What were you pressing when you first did that demo?
So we were starting with a slow tempo. So it has a lever to control how fast it goes. So we had a slow tempo. And then I was slowly bringing up the low pass filter. So that's on another lever. So I can bring up the low pass filter. And then you could hear me adjust one of the LFOs. So LFO is the low frequency oscillator. So what gives synthesizers that wah, wah, wah sound. So you can, just like a real synthesizer, you can assign a modulation source like that LFO into different parameters, into like the oscillators or into the filter. Yeah, so that's sort of what I was doing in that.
And you don't have to know any of those words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was actually going to mention is that, one of the things when you're thinking about making a product is what kind of product do you want to make? And I think in the past, one thing that makes this revolutionary is that most people either chose, I'm going to make a kid's toy or I'm going to make a real instrument. And we managed to really do both so that kids are playing a real synthesizer, and anyone who plays a synthesizer knows how complex they can be, especially modular synthesizers that are just a bunch of knobs. And so what Troy really did as his invention was to come up with a way to, with our designer, make it so that it was accessible, but still have all of the insides that are what a real synthesizer does. So it's not making canned noises, like a lot of kids' musical toys do. And, that's why kids get bored with them.
Yeah, most kids' electronic toys they're sample based. They play the same sound over and over. Everything coming out of BlipBlox is actually from a mathematical algorithm. So it's being created through an algorithm, through a processor.
How did you two get into music?
I've really loved music, even electronic music, for most of my life. When I was around 15, I was really lucky enough. My parents were able to get me a really nice music studio with a drum machine, a Yamaha DX100 synthesizer, a multi-track tape recorder. So that was how I sort of started producing music. Yeah, and Kate and I have always been into music.
I played stringed instruments my entire life, and also the piano. And I was also always drawn to music. Looking back, I didn't even know that it was electronic-based music or synthesizer-based music, but I was very interested in music. I went to a lot of concerts. I loved to dance. Trey and I actually got into the rave scene, both of us in San Francisco in the 90s, and that's how we met each other. Our whole relationship started revolving around dance and music and live performance and all that.
Well, how did you get from raving and dancing and falling in love on the dance floor to starting Playtime Engineering and inventing the BlipBlox?
I had a career in the Silicon Valley, but I was also in parallel, having fun producing music and doing some live shows with a friend of mine. So I was doing sort of both of those, and I thought there was really a market for a synthesizer toy. I've always thought synthesizers were as much toys as they were tools. They kind of look like a spaceship. They have all these flashing lights. They make these spacey sounds. So I was thinking, is there a way we could take the complexity out of synthesizers and basically simplify them so kids could just have fun with the most fun parts of synthesizers? So that's when I just started, tinkering around with software in my spare time, trying to figure out how I can make synthesized sounds from these sort of low-cost microcontrollers.
I think that's one of the really cool things also about the BlipBlox is that, all of our instruments, is that Troy actually wrote all of the software. So nothing is off the shelf. Nothing is in any other product. It's completely unique to this product. And, part of that was that there was a lot of sacrifice in the beginning of Troy working a really more than full-time, very demanding intellectually job as a hardware engineer all day, and then coming home and really almost every night on the weekends, really working to get these sounds and get them sounding how he wanted them to. And then we sort of moved into the proof of concept. So once I sort of saw that he was doing all of this, I thought, well, hey, maybe we can make a business out of this. So the next step was to connect with a designer who could help us fine tune some of the ideas Troy had come up with in terms of that spaceship. It's the initial iteration. We went through many prototypes. We got a 3D printer and played around with different ideas on the 3D printer. And actually, we have the working models. We brought it to fairs, and it's pretty fun to just show kids how many iterations it went through. It actually wasn't that many, but it was, the fine tuning. And you can see where when we started working with a designer who's pretty well known in the synthesizer community, he's designed for Moog and Rhodes and many others. He kind of got us to fine tune it to be something that was a consumer product. So that was definitely a big leap for us. It was a huge investment. So that was the first sort of, okay, are we really doing this? Are we going to invest in this person that Troy met on a old...
Yeah, it's great. So the designer's Axel Hartman, and I sort of reached out to him, and it turns out he was really excited with the idea. So we started working together. It's pretty fun. If you go to BlipBlox.com, we have an origin story, and we have a little graphic that shows the evolution of all of our prototypes. And that's sort of a fun little graphic we have on our website.
It's great to hear about, you're writing the software, you're working with a designer of physical products as well. Then you have to go through the hardware elements of it and, going from 3D printing and figuring out how to come up with a prototype. I'm curious to learn a little bit about that. So how do you go from sort of a concept, working with a designer, how do you actually make your first prototype?
Building hardware, people might not realize how inexpensive it is to really start tinkering around with developing products. You can get these pre-made development boards for literally $20, and all the software is free, and you can just start writing your code and experimenting with some functionality. So that's really how it started. We had an off-the-shelf development board and wired in some components, and for 2 years, it really was zero money invested. It's just time developing the code. And that's a really great thing about developing these products. Then I started basically, tinkering with the 3D printer, doing some of my own designs. We made our first iteration of the PCB board. That's where a little bit of money starts to get invested. Yeah, and then basically engaging with the professional product designer. That's where things start getting pretty serious in your product development.
And also thinking about for prototypes, I think it's really important for anybody doing this to have sort of an end user in their head at the beginning, because one of the things that we discovered as we went along was certain aspects and controls that we wanted to do were not ever going to pass safety testing. And that's a really important thing for us. All of our products are safety tested for ages 3 and up. And those safety certifications, a lot of them have to do with chemicals and, stuff that nobody really sees or cares about. Well, of course they care about, but it's not a tactile thing. But there are tactile aspects to it too, designing it so that all of the controls are actually underneath the chassis so that they cannot be pulled off by kids. The levers, as you called them, little gear shifter looking things, which is sort of our signature on all of our products. Those came actually out of not being able to do what we wanted, which was originally it was going to be a little slider. Then that was not something that would ever pass safety testing because of the little slats that are in sliders. So we worked with our designer and came up with these levers. And it turns out the levers are the first thing kids want to go to. They're absolutely fun for adults, for all ages.
It's like driving a spaceship.
Yeah, exactly. You're driving a spaceship. Yep. We have lots of kids who do imaginary play, and that's what they say. I'm driving a spaceship.
That's awesome. All right. Listen, we have to take a break, but when we get back, let's talk a little bit about some more of the brass tacks in terms of building a manufacturing process. We'll be right back.
Will I see you at the Music Tectonics conference? Time is running out to get your conference ticket at a special price for early birds. That ticket gets you 3 days of connecting with the 500 music innovators you need to meet, all having conversations like the ones you hear on this podcast. On October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, 2024, you'll meet the music innovators at a music tech carnival, high-energy panels with music tech's movers and shakers, demos of new AI tools, plus the new ways people are creating music at our new Creator Fair. Don't miss the keynote with legendary music industry analyst Mark Mulligan of Media Research. There's a startup event at Universal Music Group and tons of opportunities for networking and getting business done. And it all goes down by the beach in Santa Monica, California. Tickets are just $249 if you buy yours now. But after August 20th, the price goes up to $350. So get your ticket now at musictectonics.com. While you're there, check out our growing speaker roster to see who you'll meet at Music Tectonics.
Okay, we're back. This has been so fun already. I don't think we've ever had startup founders like you guys come in from a musical instrument company and talk specifically about like, what are the steps to actually doing this? And we're already learning so much from you on top of getting to hear a quick demo to hear just how space-age kids can jump into play and music all together. But I'm curious about something very specific. We talked a little bit about building the prototype, and I'm sure there's more we can do from there. But how do you get from there to building a manufacturing process?
Yeah, so really you have to find a factory, and that's the first step.
Yeah, so for us, we got lucky. There's a lot about doing a business like this where you get lucky, and where we got lucky is that there were a lot of companies looking for. We live in San Francisco, a place with a lot of innovation going on all the time, and there were companies that were actually putting together factories lists and kind of pre-vetting in a sense. And then you could get access to those. And unfortunately, they aren't around anymore, but we worked with one. And I come from a background of working with government, putting together proposals. So we actually put together sort of a formalized RFQ, which is request for quote. Troy went and got all of the BOM, which is what you have as the list of all your parts. And then we sort of listed the things that we had as an expectation. And we sent it out to several companies, knowing that no one was going to be responsive. No one was going to be writing a whole essay to get back to us.
Yeah, we basically, we requested more information than any factory would actually provide. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, okay, who's going to give us the most information? So.
But doing it that way, one, kind of helped us understand what we were doing. It was a process. It's almost like putting together a business plan, which I think is such a good thing to do, even if you never share it with anybody. So this was sort of, in a sense, putting together our factory plan, our production plan. The company that we ended up going with was the most responsive, but the main thing was we could communicate with them really well. But, during that time, we were also going to a lot of hardware meetups here around the city with people who were trying to do different instruments. One of the things we heard from other people was that their challenges were finding a factory that had the expertise. And so a lot of people have an idea for a product, but they don't have the expertise in-house. And trying to rely on your factory for engineering, for product design, I would say if I was going to give someone advice is to kind of get that stuff taken care of and not think that your factory, even if they say, yes, we can do that, a lot of people run into problems and their products never get made because we took a product that was really pretty finished. We had CAD design. So that's another step is in terms of what you do post prototype is you have CAD designs. Then those CAD designs have to be interpreted by the factory to make the parts, which are, in our case, plastic molds. And, little things like how tall is this little bit? How much can this handle button pushing pressure?
Basically,
all those things.
anything that moves on this product, right down to the power switch, had to be finely adjusted over time. Like anything that moves, buttons, knobs, levers, even the power switch, needed to be finely tuned to get it all working right.
So for us being able to kind of go in and be able to start at the fine tuning, not start at, let's get all the software working or let's finalize the design. I think that's one of the kind of success models is to really make sure you understand who you're making it for and knowing what your product is, not expecting your factory to solve those big problems.
These factories will never say no. If you ask them if they can do something, they will never say no. So you just have to understand yourself what they can really actually do. And
Awesome. Well, I'm sure there's lots more that could be talked along this thread. And even for my next question, there's probably a lot in between manufacturing and launch. But I am curious, just to fast forward a tiny bit, what did you do to launch the company? And then how did you grow it after that?
Launching it was really a lot of fun. We basically planned it around NAMM in Anaheim 2018.
Yep.
So we basically planned our launch to coincide with NAMM, we had a booth there. So a week before NAMM, we basically announced it, brought it out. If you're lucky in life, you might go viral like once. And this was our opportunity to we sort of went viral. People had never seen anything like this. The media loved it. So it was really, really exciting to basically go viral and then to show up at NAMM at, the World, Music Conference and just have everyone see it. We had a CEO from a major music corporation come up and just
Synthesizer Corporation.
Yeah, major, and he just said like, "You guys nailed it! Like, great job!"
Oh,
and
that's cool.
All that was really fun. It was a great time of launching the product.
And then what we did was we took that excitement and put it into a crowdfund. And for the first crowdfund, it really was proof of concept as much as anything else. We had no idea how many of these we were going to make at that point. We hadn't made any other than the 10 or 20 prototypes we brought to NAMM. So that was one of the things is, do people really want this thing? Or is it just something fun and cool to bring to NAMM? So that was sort of our first proof of concept, was doing that first crowdfund. And, it was way more successful than we anticipated. It ended up being that this is definitely a cautionary tale, is that we sold through our first production units in the crowdfund and didn't have any to sell for the next 6 months because there was a long lead time on our parts and all of that. So we kind of overdid it, but
there's nothing you could have done about it, right? Like the other option would have been have too many parts for stuff that's not getting sold, right?
That's right. Yeah. So you just don't know what's going to happen there. So, and all through 2018 and most of 2019, Troy was still working his full-time job.
Ah, gotcha. Was this like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo the first time?
It was Indiegogo the first time, yeah.
Yeah. You said you were kind of using it as a barometer. So it was simultaneous like launch, but also like, can we pull this off?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if it hadn't have gone well, you would have been like, oh, I guess we have 20 prototypes. What's next? We'll figure out what's next from there.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is kind of the ideal crowdfunding or kickstarting type of experience, right? Where you're saying, I've got everything here except for customers, and I'm going to measure appetite. And if it goes well, we've got a company.
Exactly. Yeah. And it gave us the opportunity also to have a little breathing room so that we could figure out all the rest of the logistics of actually running the company and shipping things and all of the less fun stuff about getting hardware products around the world.
Crowdfunding is really amazing. For us, we probably couldn't have launched our company without crowdfunding. Yeah. Getting those early supporters to actually put money down to help you cross the line and get the product to market. We appreciate those supporters so much.
And we still run into them, which is so fun. We spend a lot of time going to events and have people come up to us. And one of the coolest things, not only is meeting someone who said, oh, I support your first crowdfund, but also my kid's still playing with it.
Nice. Yeah.
Years later. Yeah, we get that comment all the time. And that just makes us so happy to have made something that made that person happy, made their kid happy, and made their family happy, and they're still playing with it. Is just really exciting for us.
Tell us more about your customers. What are they like, and what have you learned from them? Let's hear some stories from that.
Oh, well, I would say that most of our customers are men, but not all. We have women too. That's a unique thing in the toy side of our industry. So we kind of straddle. It's a lot of people who initially, I would say, are musicians who want to either share music, their love of music, with their nieces and nephews or their kids. Some are also musicians. So we actually have people who've used our products in real production environments. They are real synthesizers and they make really unique sounds like all synthesizers do. But most of our customers, I would say, are people who really have a love of music and are some of them professionals. Some of them are professionals on the weekends, and some are just people who love music and want to have it in their lives and have it in their family's lives.
You think of like a dad who's into synthesizers and wants to connect with their kids through music. It's really such an ideal product for that.
Yeah.
So interesting to design a product for kids and then design a sales strategy for their dads.
Yeah. We've had people push against us so many times in dealing with, when we're doing marketing or consulting and stuff like that, where people say, well, you got to go after the mom. The mom makes all the decisions. And we're like, well, we're a little different, which is fine for us. We don't mind being a little different. But yeah, it is a very different approach to marketing a product that's outside the norm for a product that's geared to kids.
We're on a music tech podcast here, and we're talking about the musical instrument world. And there aren't a lot of instruments that are designed for the audience that you're talking about in this way. Not a lot of synthesizer or electronic music things that are designed specifically for that group. Do you have any stories from actual families or kids, or what have you seen done with the instrument, or what kind of reactions do you hear, or what are families doing with this?
So one of the things we see that's really fun is because the BlipBlox has MIDI, you can connect it to other instruments. We've seen a lot of families where dad's playing guitar, kid is playing the BlipBlox, someone's singing, someone's dancing. So it really is like...
Or dad's on a groove box or a drum machine, and they sync. They instantly sync. So, the dad can be on one instrument and the kid can be on the BlipBlox. It's pretty easy to make a pretty fun song together.
A lot of family band time.
Yeah.
But the other thing we see is what we love to see. People send us videos and we absolutely love it. One of the things we see over and over again is a kid carefully fine tuning the sound that they want to hear. And then you see a dad's hand come in and the kid swats it away. Like, no, that's my thing. We also see a lot of kids who they fine tune it. Listen to this. Listen to what I did. There's no software to download. There's no screens. So that's also unique. Even with musical instruments now, so many electronic instruments have screens and menus you have to go through. We really wanted to simplify it so that really you just turn it on and you start messing around and you're getting sounds out of it. So that's a lot of what we see people doing with it. Kids bringing it in the car, kids bringing it to bed.
Creating some Brian Eno to go to sleep.
Exactly. Yep.
That's fun. Yeah, lots of use cases. Well, this is great. We've got a good sense of kind of like what it is, where it came from, how you started, what you've learned so far. But you guys have something new coming. We've got to take a quick break, but I'd love to hear about what's next. We'll be right back.
The Music Tectonics team has been hard at work programming an amazing lineup of speakers for our 2024 edition. I've had the opportunity to talk with some of our thought leaders, and here's what they're excited about. Joe Toe of Sony Ventures is looking at the big picture. To quote him, "Right now, we are witnessing a remarkable convergence of entertainment media encompassing music, gaming, streaming, and more. This fusion within the entertainment landscape is revolutionizing the way fans consume content. It enables deeper connections and engagement with creators through innovative and immersive experiences. By leveraging these diverse media forms, we are fostering a dynamic and interactive ecosystem where creativity and interaction thrive in unprecedented ways." Other hot topics speakers are excited to dive into include AI comes to market, superfans and fandom, late-stage streaming, gamers as music fans, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Head over to musictectonics.com/speakers to check out our amazing lineup of thought leaders, updated regularly. Now back to the show.
Okay, we are back. Troy and Kate, this is a blast. Tell us what drew you to releasing your latest instrument, the new one, the MyTrax, and how's it different from the original BlipBlox?
Yeah, so with the MyTrax, the BlipBlox is really synthesizer based. And, we took a risk and we're like, can we take a complicated device like a synthesizer and make it into a kid's toy? And the next step we thought was, could we take something like a groove box? A groove box is generally described as a drum machine with other instruments in it or other synthesizer aspects. So could we take this concept of a groove box and simplify it into a toy-like device in the same way we did with the BlipBlox taking a synthesizer? So that really is what started to inspire us with the MyTrax.
Yeah, got it. Cool. So what's the experience for the player on the MyTrax that's different from the BlipBlox?
Yeah, the MyTrax has, as the name sort of implies, it has 5 tracks of audio, and it's all sample-based. So it has 48 instruments. Each track you can put a different instrument on. You can either play notes yourself, or you can play one of the 400 built-in melodies. And it also has a sampler function on it. So you can sample in your own sounds. And then once the sound's in there, you can sequence the sound. You can apply effects to the sound. So
And when Troy says sample sounds, he means it has a microphone.
it has a
so
microphone,
you can sample any sound, meaning your voice, you playing the guitar, you dropping a raisin in water, any kind of thing. You can get really creative with it and then apply that on a track. And so I would say like the simpler answer prior to your question is that it's a music studio. So you're actually creating an entire song with the tracks rather than synthesizers, one element of a song. This can be the entire song, including beats and voice and whatever else you want to add to it.
So in terms of release timing on the MyTrax, where are we? This episode's coming out in August 2024. Where are you right now with the MyTrax?
Well, it's really exciting that you asked that question because we're kind of finalizing our last steps of our production. That's what we've spent the summer doing is getting the product produced. We are always very cautious because we've done this a few times before and production timelines slip. Mostly it has to do with shipping, but right now we're really on target to deliver to our crowdfund supporters. We did a crowdfund for the MyTrax as well. It was very successful. We're on track to deliver before the November timeline that we had set out. So we're really excited about that. We spent a lot of energy getting this pre-produced. So we have a lot of pre-production units. We got it out to a lot of beta testers. We really wanted to make sure that the product was ready to go and that what we were going to send to our crowdfund supporters was going to be the final instrument. We weren't going to be having to go, we made a mistake. So we really took a lot of time to fine tune it, to make sure it was what we wanted. Hopefully in the next couple of months.
And if you're not a crowdfund supporter, we do think they will be available for the holidays. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah.
What's it been like to go through this process, having already done it a couple times? You did the BlipBlox, you did the BlipBlox After Dark, you did all your prototypes. Now with the MyTrax, you have a lot of knowledge. How has it felt to be working on a newer instrument with all that knowledge already in place?
It's great. It's fantastic. Yeah.
A lot of it's funny though, because on one side, when you don't know what any of the problems might be, you kind of float through things. So the first time we had no clue what some of the problems were that we were going to encounter, mostly about shipping and international stuff and, all that kind of thing. But this time it was like, okay, we made decisions because we knew what the possible problems might be. So
with engineering, I like to joke that, all engineers are going to make mistakes, but a good engineer will never make the same mistake twice. And that's really important. So
really, really trying to make sure that we didn't release it sooner than it was ready to be released, making sure that we really took feedback. We took it out a lot. If you can get a really good working prototype, we actually had ours 3D printed professionally by our factory. If you look at the 3D prototype, unlike the ones we were doing in our house, which did not look like they were from a factory. But if you look at the one we were bringing out and the one we actually produced, they look very similar. They feel very similar. And that was great for us because we took it all over the place, had kids play with it, had adults play with it, kind of understood better. It's a little bit of a different market. It's a little older kids and adults than the synthesizers, which are definitely geared to little guys and older kids too, but understanding our market better and taking it out. And so that's something, those kinds of pieces of knowledge have been really helpful.
Amazing. Before we move on, any other lessons learned from this whole process? I mean, how often does maybe another musical instrument inventor and startup founder get a chance to hear from somebody as direct as you versus, larger companies that have maybe processes and many people in place with knowledge kind of spread throughout the organization? We get to talk to two of you. And I'm curious, any other lessons learned that you want to share before we move on?
All I can think is really sort of the hardest thing is when you do your prototypes. We have about 40 prototypes and you make sure those all work. When you build thousands, new problems are going to crop up that you just could not see. Whenever you see a problem in a prototype, never
ignore it.
Never ignore it. Yeah, because the smallest little thing that you might see on your prototype could very well explode into a big problem once you make thousands of them.
I'm going to say my answer to that would be listen to comments. listen to what people have to say and be flexible. There are going to be people who are negative just because that's who they are. So you don't need to get yourself involved in that too much. But really, when people have criticisms or people have questions, listen to those and don't dismiss them, because some of the coolest things we've done on the synthesizers and the MyTrax too, because we took it out for so long before we produced it, really helped make these instruments better. I think it's really easy when you get invested in your idea and your invention to not want to listen to other people's opinions because, but on the other side of that is also to know what you really want to do. So we got pushed back because of colors and things like that. And we were really like, no, this is what we want to do. So pick your battles, but really listen to people's comments. And like Troy said, I think it's all learn from what you're doing, learn from what people tell you, and also believe in yourself and trying to get it done, because it's not easy. As hardware is very difficult to get into for a number of reasons. Physical objects are hard to get around.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I think the balance you guys have of that listening, sticking to your mission and being clear about where you don't want to budge, but also being open to hearing so that you can kind of put it through that lens, through that filter of, are we fooling ourselves about this? Or is this really a key piece that we don't want to budge on, but also being open to that feedback? And Troy, I love what you said too about getting it right at the prototype level, because when you go at scale, the risk is much bigger. You won't have one instrument that doesn't work, but you might have 1,000 that need to be re-engineered, played with, tweaked, hacked, et cetera, to get them to work, which would be incredibly painful. Before we wrap up, where do you think the future of music making is going, and how do new types of musical instruments fit in? You're part of this category of new form factors of instruments that I think is really interesting. So I'd love to hear from you guys about where you think this is all going.
Yeah, I think traditionally there's been the devices that you make music on and the devices you consume music on. So you have your professional music market for producers, and then you have your iPhones and computers that you use to listen. I think there's this emerging market where this is starting to blur a little bit. So it's sort of this consumer level music creation where a consumer can have fun creating music, and it's a very consumer friendly product that really blurs the line between creation and consuming music.
Yeah, and I like to call our products and a lot of other products that fit into this category that are new too, coffee table instruments. What's fun about that is that so many of us consume music. We listen to music, we dance, we sing along. To be able to kind of take that experience and not be a musician, not be somebody where, if somebody says, are you a musician? You would say no, but I have this BlipBlox at home and I like to play with it, and it's a stress releaser, or it helps me be creative in my other things that I have to do in life, or helps my kid explore music without having the stress of learning which key they're in and those sorts of things, making it accessible to everybody. We have so much joy in our lives from music, and not being professional musicians, although Troy sort of was on the edge of it. I think it's something that's great for everybody. And as Troy said, going between those two things and having something for people to explore music on is really great.
Awesome. Well, I've got one last question for you. What's next for Playtime Engineering, BlipBlox, and MyTrax? Let us get through this one.
What's great about the MyTrax is very expandable. So you can upload new sounds and new sets. So it's really made to easily be upgradable with new sounds. So we're looking forward to basically building out a library of MyTrax sound, and we're calling them set upgrades. So we want to keep that instrument fresh. So if
and working with real musicians.
Yeah, we're really looking forward. We haven't been able to do it yet, but once we get the product out, engaging with real musicians to help us develop these new sound packs, that's going to be really fun. Yeah. I think, the MyTrax, we want to be more of a platform than just an instrument. So,
and the reason I was laughing is because when you're in the middle of doing a new hardware thing, it's like so overwhelming to think of doing the next one. And we have actually brought out a new product every 1.5 years, which is pretty crazy for a small company like ours. We do have hardware ideas. We have a lot of them, and I hope that we do those. But I think for now, we're going to sort of, let's see what we can do about having a music platform, having the MyTrax be an upgradable, expandable, livable, breathing product. And how can we do that through software and through downloads and kind of explore that side? Because we really haven't done that in our business. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to do a lot of fun things and have more of that connectivity between, you know, your favorite song and then playing around with it on your MyTrax. We'd love to be able to do more of that and bring that to people.
Amazing. Well, you guys have been so generous with your time and your advice and telling us your story. I really appreciate you coming on Music Tectonics. We didn't really talk about the pricing or whatever. The BlipBlox is under $200. What's the MyTrax going to run for?
$349.
Gotcha. And if someone wants to pick up a BlipBlox or a MyTrax, where should they go?
Yeah, so BlipBlox.com, and I'm going to spell it BlipBlox.com. You can pre-order the MyTrax for a lot less, a big discount. So that's still available. You can get to the link right on our front page, and our two products, the BlipBlox synthesizers, the SK2 and the After Dark, are available right now.
Cool. Thanks again, Kate and Troy. This has been amazing. Thanks so much for joining me on Music Tectonics.
Thanks, Dmitri. This has been great.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know we do free monthly online events that you, our lovely podcast listeners, can join? Find out more at musictectonics.com. And while you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference and sign up for our newsletter to get updates. Everything we do explores the seismic shifts that shake up music and technology, the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. That's my favorite platform. Connect with me, Dmitri Vitsa, if you can spell it. We'll be back again next week, if not sooner.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.